Good stuff. So thanks everyone for attending this fortnight's B2B marketing shizzle. I'm your host this fortnight. It was kindly hosted last fortnight by Andy. And today we've got Baz Richardson, and he's going to be talking about all things B2B creative. I think, as usual, I have a little bit of a presentation from Baz, and then we can go into questions after that. As I say, the session is recorded here, and I will put it onto YouTube and share it with the group. Over to you, Baz.
Thank you very much, Ed. Right, let me just share my screen, and then I just want to then check in that everybody can see my screen. Can you all see that, and you can all hear me as well?
Yeah.
Super, good stuff. So firstly, thank you for coming along. Thank you, Ed, for inviting me as well. So I'm Baz, I'm a creative consultant, and I'm the creative director and founder of Bravo Creative. And I work B2B as well as B2C, but predominantly I help to reposition companies, increase engagement through meaningful branding, relatable films, and empathetic campaigns as well. To set expectations, firstly, do forgive me for the odd potty mouth expletive. There is liable to be a few, so apologies for that. I'll be setting, just to set expectations, I'll be splitting the talk into about two halves, talking about the facts of the fundamental problem, and then taking you through some brilliant examples that really demonstrate how you can avoid putting your prospects into a content coma. Thirdly, I'll be using the term marketers a lot, and I'm probably teaching some of you to suck eggs here, but when I say marketers, I don't just mean professional marketers. I mean anyone who is promoting their company's offering. So it could be a salesperson, it could be a corporate CEO, leadership team, could be a small to medium business owner. So marketing isn't just resigned to the marketing department. So when I say marketers, I mean broader than just professional marketers. So let's get into it. Basically, there's no doubt about it. B2B marketing has a reputation for being boring, but reputation and opinion and facts, they can all differ. So I think it's important to start with the truth. And to do so, we're going to look to this 2021 study, the state of creativity in B2B. They do say that you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, but it's bloody hard when it looks this bad. If you recall, Alanis Morissette did a song called Isn't It Ironic? And I don't know about you, but a black fly in your Chardonnay is not ironic, but a front cover about creativity that isn't creative, that really is bloody ironic. So anyway, the study features lots of stats that I won't bore you with, but this one is rather interesting. So, again, they're talking to B2B marketing professionals and advertising professionals, and they ask this question: how creative are your marketing campaigns in comparison to other B2B brands? And to go all Les Dennis on you, the survey said, we try to be bold, but we don't always have the courage to get it right. 41% said that. 38% of the respondents said we're pretty safe. 11% were quite frank, and they said their campaigns are boring and behind the times. And 10% actually, think that they are creating bold campaigns. So it's no wonder that we shouldn't operate heavy machinery while consuming B2B marketing content, because by the industry's own admission, 90% of it will make you drowsier than night nurse. This stuff is really powerful. But what is really powerful is number two. And when I say number two, I'm referring to another study, the top drivers of profitability in advertising and marketing. And this study spanned approximately 30 years, in fact. And as you can see, it found that an organization's market share is the biggest driver of its profitability. So if you're the biggest player, or if your client is the biggest player in the sector, then great. But if it's not, if you're not, then the next best factor to leverage for profitability is creative execution. Creative execution is that powerful that it will grow your profit and help, obviously try and get you into number one. Now, interestingly, the study also asked marketers to rank these 10 factors in importance to them. And as you can see, marketers don't believe that creative is actually as important as it really is. So if we look at the top three here, so we've got multimedia, we've got season, we've got audience. This is what I call the pipe. And you need the pipe to reach the audience, but the audience doesn't see the pipe. The audience only sees what flows through the pipe. And I love this quote from advertising legend David Abbott, who says, "Shit that travels at the speed of light is still shit when it arrives." So basically, marketers spend a lot of time optimizing the pipe, but you can have the best pipe, but it really is irrelevant if you're flowing the wrong number two through it. So let's move away from the statistics. And I want to turn to Galileo, in fact, to highlight the importance of deploying the right perspective when coming up with marketing campaigns. Because I truly believe that the majority of B2B marketing and the fact that it's boring is due to marketers struggling to really put themselves in the prospect's shoes. As professionals, we've all made B2B purchases. We've all been subjected to boring marketing comms. But when it comes to creating B2B marketing, most seem to have had a lobotomy and have forgotten what it's like to be on the receiving end of marketing comms. And so to prove this point, I want to briefly tell you about what Galileo's ball drop experiment proved. And I want you to picture this, right? You're in this ship and you're moving rapidly through the water. You're below deck, so you're below the water line, and you're holding a ball. And you drop that ball, and from your perspective, the ball drops in a single direction, vertically straight down. But now imagine you're a diver or a fish, right? You're outside of the ship. You see that the same ship moving rapidly through the water. But with your special X-ray vision, you can see somebody below deck. You can see them dropping a ball. And now you see how the ball actually drops. You see the ball drop vertically while the ship is moving horizontally. So in actual fact, you see it as it really is in the context of the real world. The ball actually drops diagonally. And I know this is broad, but this is what I think is the difference between how marketers see their marketing and how prospects see the marketing. They both see the same thing, but they see it from different perspectives. A marketer sees it drop vertically, but the prospect sees it drop in the context of their real world. They see it drop diagonally. And in the pursuit of getting results and being profitable, there really is only one perspective that matters, and that's the prospects. So perspective really matters when you're creating campaigns. So perspective aside, Galileo aside, let's move on to brain science. And I really think that marketers overestimate, or they just frankly don't understand humans. We need to understand that we're not marketing to logical creatures. Humans are ridiculously irrational creatures. We are predominantly led by our reptilian brain. And so to prove this point, we're going to use something extremely scientific: chocolate brownies. I know, the most scientific tool of them all. And a psychological experiment in America asked cafe customers to do two things. It asked them to rate the taste of 3 different chocolate brownies and then write down the taste and on what they would pay for each of the chocolate brownies. So one chocolate brownie was served on a napkin, the second was served on a paper plate, and the third brownie was served on bone china. Now, not only did everyone say that the brownie served on bone china was the nicest, but they would happily pay 3 times the price for that brownie versus the brownie served on the napkin. And unbeknown to all of the tasters, every single brownie was exactly the same. The way the brownie was presented was the only difference. So the bone china changed the taste and it changed the perceived value. That's the human mind at play. That is who you are marketing to. Humans are bonkers. We don't make sense. And I guess to put some sense on it, this is why. Because many people think that the neocortex, which is the thinking part of the brain, is what makes decisions. It's not. The limbic system is what's responsible for emotions, behaviors, and more importantly, decision making. And so this is the area of the brain that marketing should be talking to. And as this clever bod points out, when we communicate all the features, facts, figures of a brand or a product, it doesn't impact behavior because the cognitive system doesn't control behavior. I'll say that last line again. The cognitive system doesn't control behavior. But that's what us marketers are trying to do. We're trying to influence and change behavior. So if you've ever had a boss or a client say, oh, come on, marketing is hardly brain science. It is. It bloody well is, right? This stuff is powerful, but we need to understand what makes humans tick. So to conclude the first half, 90% of B2B marketing, by the industry's own admission, is boring, but it can be rectified and it can be more effective and more profitable when creative execution is prioritized, when the customer's diagonal perspective is truly considered, and when emotional limbic-driven benefits trump neocortex-led features. So now we know all the facts. What I want to do is look at some campaigns and some propositions that actually practice these 3 factors. And to start with, we'll look at this, IBM's really quite famous campaign from the 1970s, Nobody Ever Got Fired for Buying IBM. And this was firmly rooted in personal risk avoidance. There's barely any references, in fact, to this 1970s campaign on the internet. So with the photographic help of artificial intelligence and a bit of Mid-Journey, I've reimagined and reinvented the campaign. So 1970s Alan Sugar aside, sure, this was a B2B campaign, but deep down it wasn't, right? This was actually a B2P campaign. This was talking to the emotions of a person in a business, basically somebody who wanted to avoid any repercussions should anything go wrong with the technology that they were mandated to buy. So this creative proposition leveraged the psychological tools of fear and uncertainty and doubt, rather than say, the logical tools of text and specs and speeds and feeds and vanilla statements that their competitors could say. And that still happens today in the world of technology. So moving on, sure, this campaign from LinkedIn, which has just launched, it's not going to win any design awards, granted, but the creativity here didn't need to be at like the lipstick level. It needed to be much deeper. And deeper for me is the key word here, because while other companies are selling business intelligence, LinkedIn have thought, well, we could go and play in that category, but they've created an entirely new category for themselves, unique to them, and they've called it deep sales. I know from a podcast interview with the marketing director behind this, a lot of heavy strategic creative thinking actually went into this. And for me, good creative is made from working backwards from the customer's problem. You know, it's Galileo and perspective all over again. And this campaign tackles how we're all, as B2B professionals, being sold to, you know, shallowly, right? We're all victims of spray and pray marketing, spam cannons. And as the copy states, I don't know if you can see it there, but it says you can't sell like you used to. Buyers are smarter and expect more. So again, much like IBM, this isn't leading with the text and specs of the tool and the insights like their competitors are. It's IBM. It's leading with the emotional, selfish desires that the audience wants. And this audience want sales, promotion, they want commission. And deep sales will help them get that. Shallow sales are harder. So, you know, they're going to struggle. And for me, if an idea works brilliantly on the back of a fag packet or a napkin, it's great. It's going to work even better when it's actually dressed up. And during the podcast, I couldn't even see the visuals. But when I heard shallow sales versus deep sales, I was sold. And so that for me, you know, as a creative, all we've got is words, images, and a good idea. And I really think deep sales is a brilliant idea. So we'll move on to something a lot more visually striking now. And I love this campaign from Sage, selling accountancy software to small and medium business owners. But this isn't selling accounting software per se, right? This campaign understands that we didn't start our businesses. I certainly didn't start this business to become the bloody accountant and the bookkeeper. So this is selling empowerment to these business owners. It's saying that with the right software, you can boss the very thing you hate doing while still bossing the thing you love doing and the reason why you set up your business. For context, you know, I thought it'd be really handy to look at what their competitors are doing. So this is a campaign that Xero have done. And you know what? It's nicely executed. It's not terrible. But when a campaign needs to resonate really quickly, I know which one for me creates a stronger, a more meaningful, lasting thought. And so the final example that I want to share with you, I'm really conscious that that many case studies are for big brands. You know, I've done it here, IBM, LinkedIn, and Sage. And they're huge brands and they're big budgets. And a lot of the time it's just unrelatable. So I thought I'd showcase a smaller company's B2B campaign. And as you'd probably expect by now by the build-up, it's one that I created. So this is for a UK-based print and promotional merchandising company called Vibrant Colour. And the brief had 3 restrictions. They said, don't change our name, don't bugger around with our logo, and don't change our colours, but do fix our problem. And that problem, you know, without meaning to sound all, you know, Simon Sinek, was that they weren't giving their customers a strong reason why. They were doing what most of their competitors were doing, as you can see from this before and after example. They were selling the product rather than their expertise. And especially in the world of print and promo, when you sell the same product, you know, pens and printing and whatever, the playing field is extremely level. And so I had to try and tip the level, you know, the playing field in their favor. And to do so, I really had to work backwards from the customer's problem. But there wasn't just one problem, you know, I identified 3. And the first is that there is so much choice. And I created these collective nouns, what I call the perils of promo. And this shows the prospect that the company, that Vibrant Colour, has empathy for their challenge. And that's what we have to do, right? We can't just identify the pain point and not tackle it head on. So we were tackling it head on. Once you have chosen what you want, whether it's a mug or a bottle or a stress ball or whatever, prospects then need to do the next best thing, right? They need to get into the details of the specs. So is it eco? Is it plastic? Is it bamboo, cotton, polyester, etc.? So in other words, they don't know how to master their merch. And then because everybody in this space is all saying the same thing, the prospect doesn't know who to choose. They don't know who to partner with. So I reframed vibrant color as the masters of merch. And so much like the Sage campaign, this turned into an empowerment proposition that the prospect can master their merch with the masters of merch and never fear the perils of promo again. And ultimately, this is what I call having a strategic hook. They no longer need to keep reinventing new campaigns and disjointed tactics, which is exactly what they were doing. When you have a great creative strategic hook, you can hang all of your tactics off it. Brand awareness, direct sales tactics, everything can hang off it, and everything can hang off it for a long time as well, a couple of years at least, right? So to go back to the drivers of profitability, Christopher, the MD of the company, he's been really honest with me, right? They're not the biggest in the sector by no stretch, but they are utilizing the next best factor on that list. They are utilizing creative execution to be profitable. And they have seen a remarkable change in the sales and their turnover since launching this campaign. So to wrap up, when I say that B2B marketing needs to go from being boring to bravo, I'm not saying that, it has to be wacky and risky. None of these campaigns are wacky or risky. They are simply leveraging the three vital factors that we identified earlier on. And many people think that creative is subjective. But creativity in marketing is a tool not of subjectivity, but for an objective rather than subjective. And so if you can truly create marketing that makes a customer subconsciously respond, bravo, they're not going to say it out loud, sure. But if they can subconsciously respond, you got me, you understood me, I'm interested, well, that's then one step closer to a sale. It's one step closer to future sales. It's one step closer to you being more profitable and your clients being more profitable. And isn't that what great B2B marketing should achieve? I think it is. I really do. Thank you for listening. That's it. I'll stop waffling now.
Thanks, Baz. That was great. I love the 1970s Alan Sugar. There's a real scale going on there. Cool. So I've got kind of 5 minutes, maybe stretch a couple of minutes long for questions. And I'll kick things off. I love the concept as well, like B2P, in terms of that individual in the business. Do you think that the creative that you come up with as a campaign needs to resonate with a particular person within the decision-making unit? In terms of classic B2B, you potentially need to influence a number of people to get that position over the line. Is it more like the end user, which you think is really important, especially with that kind of emotive positioning, or is it everyone in the organization that needs to be tied to it?
I think it has to consider everybody in that process. So a bit like IBM, it wasn't just talking to that person, the purchaser, it was considering the other people in the decision-making chain as well. But yeah, sure, if you can use creativity to actually then do the hop, skip and a jump and think about the struggles, again, the LinkedIn campaign was doing that. It was not actually talking directly to the target audience. It was working backwards from the target audience's customer. They're not going to do business with you if you do shallow sales and shallow tactics with them. So I think creativity is definitely a tool for that, but I think it's also a really good tool to challenge the client to think about, don't just think about your agenda here. Wrap your agenda in the customer's agenda, wrap your agenda in the target audience's agenda. And I don't think they do that. A lot of clients that I've worked with, they're just seeing their nose. They're not thinking beyond that. They're not thinking about the diagonal perspective, if you will. They're only thinking about it from their own.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Guys, chip in if you've got kind of questions specifically. I think the one that I had was around. So often, in the B2B world, the decision-making kind of process is a lot longer, right? So you need to be able to hold those people within the creative concept, but then towards maybe the kind of end of that journey, it's more kind of a qualified message.
Yeah.
Do you think that the overarching creative can feed into that? Or is it kind of more important the early kind of awareness stage at the kind of top of the funnel?
Yeah, do you know, that's a really good question. And it's one that I do actually kind of challenge my clients on. It's a cliche, it's a massive cliche, but I guess think of the funnel like a piece, a stick of rock from the seaside, right? If you've got a good proposition, it should go all the way through that stick of rock. It should go all the way from the top of the funnel to the bottom of the funnel. And I haven't seen, all of LinkedIn's deep sales comms, but I would have thought as you're getting closer to the bottom of the funnel, they're still talking about deep sales. I know that Christopher at Vibrant Colour, I was actually talking at one of his events yesterday, and I've seen his top of the funnel comms and actually through the funnel comms, and Master Your Merch is still really close to the till, to that decision-making bottom of the funnel's comms. So I think if you've got a really considered creative proposition, it shouldn't just work top of the funnel. You shouldn't just get into the funnel and suddenly that proposition just has disappeared and maybe there's some legacy propositions in there, mixing it up and muddying the waters. If you can, I really do think if you've got a great creative concept, it should consider all the way from awareness to sales. And that's certainly what I try and practice as well. Maybe in bigger organizations, it could be tougher, but it's a benchmark. And I think, good creatives should strive for that.
In your experience between kind of B2B and B2C, do these creative campaigns need to kind of run for longer to kind of have more of an impact in the market? Or is it kind of similar in terms of people being aware and it having an impact? Is it the creative? Or do you think that campaign should be something that is there, kind of worked on and then moved on to something that's next?
I don't want to sound all like Mark Ritson and kind of Byron Sharp here, but I think it goes back to the long and the short of it, right? A lot of sales cycles and marketing campaigns are 6 weeks long, 6 months long. And I really do look at campaigns that are a year long, 2 years long. And I think they should be longer. And therefore, if you invest in them properly, if you do all of the diagnosis and the strategy properly, then that campaign can work a lot harder over a longer period of time. If, again, a bit like, some of the examples I've shown here, if, they're just doing quick tactics on and off, on and off, on and off, then you are going to keep reinventing the wheel and you are going to go, oh, that didn't work. We need to do something. And therefore marketing, or should I say creative, isn't going to look like it's as powerful as it actually is. So again, I will always try and get my clients to say, this is such a good idea that it is going to work for a year or 2 years. Let's not keep, it's what Einstein said, the definition of madness and insanity is doing the same thing over and over again. When I first started working with a client, I'm like, let's stop doing these, 6 weekly kind of, sprints and things, and just have one great campaign that you can essentially, it's that strategic hook that everything can hang off of. That's what I try to do. I mean, we don't really live in that perfect world. So I'll always try and, practice in theory,
Cool. Great. We're over time. I'll try and keep this thing to time, but thanks so much, Baz. Great session. So much useful stuff in there. And thanks for the guys for attending. We'll be back in another fortnight's time and I'll share the recording. Great. Thanks a lot. See you again.
Lovely. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
See you later.
Bye.
Ciao.
Cheers, Ed. I don't know when you're going to